A very good morning to you all. Thank you so much for joining us. To those that don't know me, my name is Nyasha, and I'm the project manager for ESD at Smart Procurement. We've got a full agenda today. There's going to be Discovery and Liberty that have taken time out of their busy schedules to be with us today. But before we start with our agenda for today, I'd like to tell you guys a story. So this is a story about an SMME that was part of our program last year. They were sponsored by one of the corporates to be part of the program. So this company specializes with software subscriptions and infrastructure delivery. And like yourselves, they were at the sessions, they were always attending most sessions, and they really engaged and networked well with other companies. And they just recently gave us some feedback on the program, and I would love to share that feedback with you. So I'm going to read that feedback in part. It says, we have managed to achieve significant growth in turnover with an increase of 142% for the financial period that ended on the 31st of March, 2023. We've managed to maintain the momentum, and we were able to secure orders worth more than 4 million Rand since the beginning of the new financial year that started on the 1st of April 2023. This includes deals from one parastatal over a 5-year period and additional projects secured from 2 more corporates. We've also managed to grow in terms of our staff. We've also managed to create 1 permanent job and 10 temporary jobs during this period. So I'm sure someone is wondering, how is this relevant? So this is just to tell you that with the right attitude and determination, it is achievable. This program is actually very helpful. And we still have more sessions that are coming up, including the physical session that we'll have at Indaba in September. So please just take the time to network, engage, and attend the sessions. So I'm just hoping that this testimonial has actually encouraged one person today. So now moving on to the agenda for today, we have Discovery in the house. They are ready to engage with us. So without wasting any more time, if I can just ask Lester and Tim, I think, and Colette, please, if you can just switch on your cameras and unmute. Okay, there we go. I can see.
Hello.
Hi, good morning. How are you today?
Good, and you? Colette won't be joining us. He's not well. Okay. But Tim and I are available. So just a quick introduction. My name is Lester Ash, and I'm the Group Chief Procurement Officer at Discovery. Tim, you can just introduce yourself quickly.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm Tim Damons. I'm the Senior Procurement Manager at Discovery. I report directly into Lester Ash.
Oh, that's great. Thank you guys for joining us. We really, really appreciate having you here. So as you can see, there's a lot of SMMEs on the call, and there's some that are still joining, and they want to know about Discovery. They want to know, if we want to do business with Discovery, how do we get our foot on the door? So we've got some questions that we're just going to ask. So I will engage with you for the first 15 minutes, and then afterwards we'll open up the floor for questions. So maybe I'll start with you, Lester. Maybe if you can just start by introducing your role, what it entails, tell us more about Discovery in terms of the procurement side, how it works, so that at least the attendees can benefit from that.
Sure. So procurement at Discovery is not as as matured as you would believe it to be. I mean, if you look at Discovery, you look at this large corporate, that's usually first to market with a lot of things in the industry, but procurement is still very much in its infancy. I've joined 5 years ago, and we've been trying to set up a stable procurement division that services the group, the SA group. So we service health, Discovery Invest, Discovery Life, as well as Vitality SA, as well as Insure, but we don't look after the claims procurement. We've got a separate division set up for claims procurement specifically that deals with motor and non-motor related claims. So anything from your panel beaters, your tow trucks, construction, plumbing, etc., anything related to claims for home or for motor vehicles. So that's what we do. That's what we look after. And we've lately, Tim's just joined our team recently. We've started to expand, and we are trying to create more of a group function, not just for SA, but impacting other markets that Discovery operates in to benefit from the scale. So very much a growing division within the organization and within the group, and putting the right team together to sort of reach those targets of touching all the countries in which Discovery operates from a procurement perspective.
Okay, thank you so much, Lester, for that. I think it really sums it up. Maybe if I can move to you, Tim, do you mind just sharing with us, more about your role, just telling us more about what you do at Discovery as well?
Sure. So look, just as a brief sort of introduction. So my background is really in the financial services space, as well as within the manufacturing space. So the previous companies I worked for were also blue chip organizations, very much like Discovery. Started off at Citigroup, which is the big bank, American bank, and worked in London for better half of 5 years. Came back to South Africa, then joined South African Breweries, which is then taken over by AB InBev, I found my way into Discovery, which is another organization, proudly South African, that we obviously hope to take to greater heights from the insurance and health and wellness industry. So the commodities that I'm looking after at Discovery at the moment is within the marketing space. So looking at everything, so marketing and advertising. So above the line, through the line, and below the line. And then I look at all the professional services. So pretty much that's in Discovery, that's really where the crux of our money is spent. In terms of our breakdown, being in the financial services space, you can understand essentially our organization is very tech heavy. So, most of our spend is really within the IT space. So it's everywhere from hardware, software, and then obviously related services. Okay. And then the next sort of biggest category from there is really on the professional services side. And that's again from the consulting space right through from the strategic side of things, all the way through to like staff augmentation, which then again supports our sort of IT and our technology aspirations as an organization. And that would then be sort of followed up again within the sort of the marketing side. So we're very big in terms of the branding space. So promotional gifting, events management, those kind of things. So that's really where we sort of see the opportunity. Obviously in terms of empowerment, transformation, so we're always looking at obviously inviting SMEs to essentially engage with us and see where we can obviously form partnerships and bring you into our supply chain, in providing services to the group.
Thank you so much. That was very detailed. So I managed to look through your website yesterday, and I noticed that you have a supplier portal. I saw that there's login details. You need to log in to get into the supplier portal. So how does one SMME that is on this platform, how do they get to be a supplier or a vendor to be on your portal? How does it work?
So the way the procurement process works is because we aren't a public sector company, we operate in the private sector. Our RFPs are closed, so we run sourcing activities depending on the spend thresholds. we will determine which sourcing process to follow. And we will invite vendors who we feel are suitable. So vendors that we've met through forums like this, vendors that we've met through contacting the procurement department or the business areas to say that they deliver a certain product or service and they would like the opportunity to do it at Discovery. So those are some of the areas that we look at. We also just scan the markets, to see who's available depending on what the service or product is that's required. And then we follow whatever RFP or RFQ process, sourcing process that needs to happen to appoint them. So we have the portal that you're looking at is just where vendors can register their intention to do business with Discovery. There won't be an approved vendor per se on our system, but it is a place where they can register their intent to do business with Discovery. And when we have sourcing activities, that's one of the channels that we look at when we're inviting companies to pitch for work at Discovery.
Okay, that's great. And then Lester, we've got some suppliers here that are part of our City of Cape Town event. So they are in the Cape Town region. So I just wanted to find out with regards to your procurement, is it centralized or decentralized? Is it region-based? How does that work as well?
It's centralized, so our procurement offices are based in Sandton at one Discovery Place. We do regional sourcing from time to time. We don't have a huge presence in the regions. We've got an office in Cape Town, Sable Park, Century City. We've got one in Durban. And Gqeberha, we've got a regional office just on the outskirts there. The requirements from the regions are not great because they're pretty much small regional offices. Our services are usually delivered from a central part, but when we do source for the regions, we look for local companies with regional presence. We try not to use Johannesburg-based companies to do work in the regions. We try to empower the regions that we work in, by allowing them to do so. Cleaning, let somebody in Cape Town do the cleaning, the marketing, and all the rest of it. So as far as possible, we're always looking for locally based companies to deliver the services in those regions.
Okay, all right, that's great. I think my next question would be around, so as I looked through your website again, I saw that there's an email, I think it's Discovery Procurement something. So I also just wanted to check, since you said that your procurement is closed, is it possible that an SMME can send their company profile through that email address so that when opportunities do arise, then they can be considered for those opportunities?
Sure. Let me just double check that it is still operational. There've been some changes to our website, so I don't want them to send stuff and it's not going to be received on this side. For now, they're more than welcome to drop me an email. You can share my email address with them. We're always looking for SMMEs. They can send it to Tim as well. We're looking for, that's one of the weak areas on our scorecard, EMEs and QSEs. And I think a lot of large corporates are in the same position where, one day you're an EME, one day you're QSE, and then after spending a bit of money with you, you move into the generic sector. So you have to keep a good pipeline of EME and QSE companies, that you can have a clear strategy for moving in, knowing that you're not the only company that's spending money with them. And knowing that when a large corporate like Discovery is spending money with them, it makes them more marketable. So they attract more customers easier. The ability to attract customers becomes easier, and before long the spend increases and they're into the generic. So you need to find new EME and QSE companies to close the gap on the scorecard, which would have been there previously.
Okay, thank you so much.
I see somebody asking for the email address. You can just share it with them, Nyasha, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'll share that after the session.
Okay.
Maybe I can direct this question to Tim. In terms of compliance, like the BE level and some documents, what do you require from SMMEs if you're going to encourage one SMME that wants to do business with Discovery? What kind of compliance documents are you looking at?
Okay, so when we look at onboarding vendors within the Discovery our approved supplier list, as we call it, essentially what happens is that the introduction of the supplier into our our supplier database obviously would stem from a sourcing process generally. Okay, so ultimately we would run through an RFQ or RFP process. Following that, we would obviously conduct some level of due diligence through that process itself. But then in terms of compliance, obviously being within the financial services sector, you can understand that our requirements are very strict. So what happens is we utilize a system for vetting, and the interaction between ourselves and the vendor will take place through a system called OneTrust. So OneTrust is essentially the facilitation tool that is used, because it's all in compliance with POPI. All right. So essentially what will happen is our initial interaction with the vendor and engagement with the vendor will be via OneTrust. And through that system, we will request specific information. So it's all your CIPC documentation, so your company registration documentation. We will also request your SARS TCS PIN, all right, and that's to check compliance. And then through that system, we will also request that you then attach and upload your BBB certificate. Okay. When we receive those documents back, we essentially do further checks through other systems as well. So we link to a system called LexisNexis Procure Check, and we will utilize your CIPC information to then conduct checks on both the company's name and registration number, as well as all the directors involved in the organization. Okay, and that's those, and then we also then put the same information into another system called NICE Actimize, and that's effectively an anti-money laundering system. So that's a tool that's linked to all of the different sanctions lists, anti-terrorism lists and all of those kind globally, and it collates the information. And effectively, we will then also look for any sort of hits or red flags that come through that system. Okay, and then the SARS TCS PIN is then shared with our Treasury Department, and through that process, they check for tax compliance in relation to that organization. So those are the main sort of compliance checks that we do. And obviously, if you clear, then yeah, you will be loaded onto our ERP or accounting platform as a vendor, after successful verification.
Okay, thank you so much, Tim. That was very detailed. So I just want to give the suppliers on the call an opportunity to ask questions, because I see there's a lot of questions. So to make this as interactive as possible, I'm going to call out some of the SMMEs to ask their questions directly to Lester and Tim. So Zibuyisile, would you want to unmute and ask your question? If you can also just switch on your camera, if possible, that would be great. Okay, just checking. All right, maybe whilst we are waiting for Zibuyisile, can we move on to Joyce Siepati? I see your hand was up. If you can just unmute and ask your question.
Good morning.
Morning. How are
Morning.
you this morning?
Thank you so much, Smart Procurement. Thanks, Lester and Timothy. I'm in advertising and marketing, so I sometimes get jobs from your people, not direct. So I'm it's a form of subcontracting, whereby as a freelancer myself, I do voiceovers and translations of your jobs. So I wanted to check, will I be able to get an opportunity to directly work with you guys, number one? Number two, if not, will I be able to get a recommendation from you guys to those that you work with? Like if you use a big advertising agency, will you recommend Botlali Media and Promotions for translation jobs, voiceovers, and everything else? Will it be possible?
Just are you a voiceover artist? Or
As an individual, yes.
okay. So the likelihood of a direct relationship is small, and the reason for that is because you know, as a large corporate, we try to minimize the number of vendors that we interact with directly from a cost point of view, from an administrative point of view, and from a contract point of view. So it wouldn't be feasible contracting directly with every single voiceover artist, with every single influencer, and the like of it. So that's the reason we prefer to deal with agencies. Also, agencies have better relationships with these artists, with these influencers, because they deal with them on a regular basis, where we would deal with them, you know, once off. And also the agency will be more inclined to recommend the most suitable for the campaign, because they're looking at it holistically, and would be able to negotiate potentially better rates. So that's the first thing. It's unlikely, you know. There may be exceptions made depending on the circumstances, but generally it would be a relationship through the agency. In terms of giving references, you know, the agency would be better equipped to provide those references, but certainly whoever you're dealing with within the business area, you know, in marketing, would also be able to say, yes, this is somebody that I've worked with for many years. Level of professionalism was great. The overall level of interaction was great. And yeah, there's no issues with that. It wouldn't come from procurement though, because we wouldn't have that relationship with you as the end person. Your daily interaction will be with marketing. And they do give references, whether it's a direct relationship or not. It just depends on how you build that relationship with them. I hope that answered it.
Yeah, partly.
Okay.
Maybe I also have to rephrase, because
Sure.
I just wanted to mention that I have had a relationship with Discovery, but as a freelancer. But now I'm talking about the business as an SMME, because my company does the same.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're asking if your company would get an opportunity? Is that?
Yeah.
As opposed to you as an individual? No.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. So we've got a number of challenges, like I said, in finding EMEs and QSEs. You know, the amount of spend that is required to meet the maximum points in the EME and QSE space from a preferential procurement scorecard is quite significant. So we're always looking for opportunities. Just to give you an example of what we've done is we've changed our RFP scoring to favor EMEs and QSEs. So if you're a Black female-owned generic company, you're not going to score as much as a Black female EME or QSE. because of the points allocation which we've provided for EMEs and QSEs. We also do a lot of initiatives where when we go to RFP, we always look for EMEs and QSEs that are suitable, that can compete in the RFP process and not just to take up space. And then the other thing is we are also encouraging generic companies to find EMEs and QSEs to partner with, that we can benefit from the scoring by paying directly. So we've already done that in a few of our environments. We've done it in security. We've done it in our recent cleaning RFP, where we actually say to generic companies that are bidding, can you come up with innovative ways of showing us how EMEs and QSEs will benefit through this, whether it's breaking it out into regions and getting small regional companies to provide the people resources, and they can provide the management and infrastructure oversight, you know, or whatever those things are. So we're always looking for opportunities to increase that. Guys, sorry, I can steal 5 minutes into my next meeting, but I'm supposed to have a hard stop now at 9:30. But I can steal 5 minutes into it. I'm not sure if Tim can stay on if required. Okay.
Yeah.
But I've got 5 minutes left, so yeah. Tim
Okay,
can
so let me just try to get through the questions.
So sorry, before we do, did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you so much. My company is Butlali Media and Promotions, so I'll definitely register.
I'm sure I've seen the name, to be honest.
I think, look, as just to close out that sort of point, I mean, send us your details. There's always opportunities, right? So we can see where there's opportunity to slot you into our RFP process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm just going to read out one question here. So does Discovery have enterprise development programs for the financial sector? And if so, where is this advertised?
So not yet. The enterprise development programs that we've had to date haven't been very structured or formalized. They've cut across a number of sectors. Orange Farm in Southern Gauteng was identified as an area that Discovery would support. So we do a lot of enterprise development programs in that area, not necessarily specific to a certain sector, that cuts across all sectors. We've built an entrepreneurial center in the area where we provide boardroom facilities, meeting room facilities, etc., to our incubators, our entrepreneurial group from the area. So that is how we manage that side of it. But our claims insure has a more formal program which they've implemented. So they are doing work this year. They're focusing on plumbing, the plumbing industry. So they're doing a number of training initiatives, some financial initiatives for plumbers in the enterprise development space. And the group is also looking to follow suit with our own sort of initiatives, and to have something more formalized that impacts specific industries as opposed to specific areas. And we're hoping that in the next year or so, we've got more formal projects to launch, and you can rest assured we'll share this with Smart Procurement to pass on to people that may be interested within your network.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that answers that question. And then we can move over to Zeno. Zeno, please, if you can just unmute, and please just keep your questions to 30 seconds so that we can attend to a lot of questions. We can always send follow-up questions after the session. Sure.
Yeah, from the outset, thank you, Leslie and Timothy. Really appreciate your presence. Just very quickly, we provide very specialized services, mostly to the IT department. When they require services, do they come via procurement, or do they go to the industry directly?
It's It's a combination of both. It also depends. It also depends on the spend values. So the spend values determine what the sourcing process is that should be followed. Certainly, if it's over R1 million in spend, they need to contact the procurement department to run a formal sourcing process in conjunction with them. But like I said earlier, we're not in a very mature procurement states, and we are moving into that very quickly. We're developing category strategies to support the business in executing what needs to be executed in their areas effectively and efficiently. We've got Tim who's just joined, and we've also got another guy, Ricardo, who wasn't able to make it today, but he looks after the IT and CRES, the corporate real estate services portfolios. And we are at the moment in a hybrid of being reactive as making sure that we don't hold business back from doing anything that they need to do, but in parallel creating proactive initiatives and drafting category strategies to support and enable the business in delivering their KPIs, their quality targets, their savings targets, while also trying to implement digital tools to support this and the rest of it. So short answer is they will come to us, because our policy dictates that they should for certain values, but there are instances where business needs are critical, and these processes may be bypassed. And because we're still in a transition and in a hybrid model, we have to deal with that level of flexibility, where necessary. But I think similar to what Tim said just now, if you see an area within Discovery where you feel that you could add value, please do send your profiles through.
Yeah.
I promise that I will go through it. So I will give the relevant category or commodity manager, looking after that to look at as well as our bid office. So in the event of any sourcing processes, formal sourcing processes, you can be included in those as well. Yeah.
Super stuff. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
Sorry, I have to run. But if Tim's on, you're still in very, very good hands. Thank you for your interest in doing business with Discovery, and I look forward to receiving those profiles.
Thank you so much, Lester, for taking the time. We really appreciate. We will be in touch with all the profiles.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Tim, if you don't mind, so we've
Sure.
got Liberty that's supposed to start at 9:35. So if you don't mind maybe staying on, and then we can attend to other questions after the session if you don't have any other questions.
Look, Nyasha, my propose, a different sort of approach. Look, I'm happy to field any questions that have come through the chat.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm happy to respond directly, or actually to respond to you, and you can then share that or broadcast that to the group in terms of the responses. But I think just in closing, I think, look, we open pretty much to any opportunity for SMEs to engage with us. So, and what I would sort of implore you is to send, your profiles to us. As Lester alluded to, we are definitely, we're sort of centralizing procurement still within a very federated structure across the business. But yeah, there's a lot more influence happening, in terms of procurement and our interaction with our internal stakeholders and customers. So essentially, the line of the group, Adrian Gore and the board, is to essentially make sure that procurement obviously is managing all of the supply engagements on behalf of the group. And as such, we really want to make sure that we cast the net as wide as we can when actually going through our sourcing processes. So please do send us your information, and we will make sure that we look at it, and that we obviously explore the opportunities for you.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you so much. So what we will do is we will take all the questions that are in the chat, we'll put them in a document and send them to you. So even those that have their hands raised, I see Ifan and Sodiq, we're so sorry, we no longer have time, but please, can you just type your questions in the chat and then we'll share them with you. And after the session, we'll also share the email addresses for Tim and Lester. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nyasha.
Okay, thanks. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Debbie. All right. Cheers,
Okay,
everyone.
thanks. Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. So our next session is with Liberty. Anissa, please, you're welcome. If you can just, oh, there we go. How are you today, Anissa?
Well, thanks. How are you, Nyasha?
I'm fine, thanks. Everybody's been looking forward to the session, eh? Liberty
Really?
is sought after, so we're excited that you're here.
Why is Liberty so sort of wanted?
I
If I
don't
could
know.
ask that question.
They'll tell us in the session. I'm sure they'll give
Okay,
us all the
hopefully
information.
we'll get some response.
Exactly. Exactly. So maybe to start, Anissa, maybe if you can just please introduce yourself and Liberty Procurement for the benefit of the audience.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Nyasha. So good morning, everybody. My name is Anissa Rabani, and I work within Group Procurement at Liberty. And I'm mainly responsible for preferential procurement across the group. That includes part of our property portfolio, as well as part of our standard portfolio, and then the rest of the Liberty group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anissa, for that. So Anissa, a lot of questions around how the SMMEs can be part of your procurement, so suppliers. So we just need to know where you advertise your opportunities, if you advertise your opportunities.
Thank you. So Liberty unfortunately operates on a closed type of tender process, or it's by invitation. So what happens is usually, is if I could just go a little bit into detail about our procurement processes, is that so we are procurement, so we're supposed to be a central sort of function. And then we have our different business areas with the different, obviously we have category managers, sourcing managers and buyers, and the respective category managers who mostly engage with business in terms of the requirements or the needs. They will then let procurement know. Procurement says, okay, fine. They'll come and they'll say, okay, Anissa, IT is going to market and they're looking for Salesforce service providers, as an example. But what my role then would be is probably to reach out to people far and wide and see who does actual Salesforce sort of services. I then take it as and that requirement is also to be BE compliant. So either an EME, QSE that's 100% Black owned or Black woman owned. So I reach out sometimes to you guys. I'll reach out to guys at the CISA. There's a couple of guys out at Momentum. So I reach out to a lot of people that I know and find out more or less who the guys are that do those types of services. I then take that information, I submit it to the category manager or the sourcing manager or the buyer, depending on who's actually going to manage that process for the business area. Once that happens, then basically they then will sort of invite the supplier to partake. So by inviting the supplier to partake in a process, just making you aware that Liberty is embarking on this type of RFQ or RFI or RFP, and there'll be a little thing, do you accept or decline? And if people accept, then they are part of the process. However, if they decline, and then obviously they cannot provide those services, but that information we take and we store for another process when we embark on a different process again.
Okay, wow, thank you so much. That was very detailed. So maybe Anissa, if you can just let us know, like in terms of the categories of things that you procure, what would you say are, say, your top 5 procurement categories?
I'd
at
say
least?
top three.
Okay, top three.
So
Yes,
obviously,
that's
yeah. So IT is one of our biggest sort of procurement of goods and services, if I can put it that way. And I think the reason why IT is probably that is because of the evolution of technology right now. You know, everybody is working cloud-based sort of platforms, and especially at Liberty. I mean, we have a client advisory sort of department that we need to service, and this is dealing with our brokers, our intermediaries, and our financial advisors, and obviously how we can make it easier for them to go out and sell products and services on behalf of Liberty. So, you know, if you walk with a phone, and I mean, practically do business on your phone these days. You can sign a client up with your phone these days. So yeah, IT is one of our biggest spends, and then consultants and contractors. And this is like, you know, just getting in resources into assisting or helping with certain projects that's being run, and IT being one of the biggest projects. A lot of our resources fall under that, but we also have a lot of resources that fall under professional services, where that is also required. Marketing is another big, well, it's a big sort of service that is required within Liberty. And then we also have our establishment expenses. So that's a category that falls under real estate services, under GRESS, you know, where you have your suppliers that do construction, plumbing, you know, all that day-to-day maintenance of the operational running of your buildings. And right now, I think in our space, the biggest ask and want is that we are looking at suppliers that are actually in the solar space, that can do alternate power supply. So yeah, so that is one of the biggest things that we are embarking on right now as Liberty, aside from all the other, you know, wants and needs that we have from a services and goods requirement.
Okay, thank you so much. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up for questions so that at least we get a lot of people asking their questions. So if anyone has a question, please can you, okay, I see we've got a hand already. So Dick, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm sorry if I'm arrogant. Please go ahead and answer ask your question.
Hi, morning, Anissa. Sorry, yeah. How are you doing? Thanks, Nyasha. Thanks, Anissa, for this opportunity. Primarily, my interest was piqued with the solar renewable energy as a supplier. But my question would be, would this be primarily for Liberty-owned buildings, or would it be as I would say, as a sales opportunity to the general market for solar?
So basically right now it is an opportunity just for Liberty buildings only. And I think the reason is that, you know, we operate on gas at the moment, and I think there is, so it's gas, it's diesel, and we're obviously looking at alternate methods, considering that, I mean, our predominant business is in Gauteng, and this area gets hit with load shedding almost 3 times a day. So, you know, it doesn't make sense that you want to run that risk continuously of using diesel or gas or whatever it might be. So the alternate power supply is definitely a requirement for us right now. And to be honest with you, we are going to market right now as well in terms of that particular requirement. So yeah, it's just Liberty only.
Okay. So we would then have to, would that be open tender, or would it be invited based on?
Yeah, you'd be invited. So, I mean, I think this opportunity today was actually, it was perfect for me in terms of just with the immediate needs that Liberty has. And I think this is a big one because, you know, a lot of people are going this route right now. And if I could also just say, Nyasha, that Liberty is also now part of Standard Bank. We've been sort of 100% acquired a year ago, and there is an integration process that is underway at the moment. So a lot of the things that we are doing right now actually aligns to the way the bank works and the bank does things. So Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people know Rosebank and 30 Baker Street. That building is one of the best that we have in South Africa, if I can put it that way, as far as the setup goes there. So, and that also is running on alternate power supply. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, oh, that's great. So maybe you can share your details after the session.
I will
And
definitely.
yes, they can send their profiles. Ifan, I see you've got a question. If you can just unmute and ask your question.
Good morning and thanks for the opportunity. Salam alaikum. The question I would like to ask is, our company specializes in digital payment solutions, and companies like African Bank and Sanlam are using the voucher payments to substitute debit orders on their bank accounts, which may be a little bit costly for them as well, depending on how many debit orders they have on the bank accounts. So my question is, other service providers like I said, African Bank and Sanlam are using the vouchers to substitute debit orders. Would Liberty consider to provide the same payment method to their clients? And I've heard that QSE is qualifying criteria as a startup company. If Liberty would be interested, would they still consider my company, since it's a startup, but we are licensed to deliver the service or to offer the services to service providers or product providers?
So I have a question for you, and thank you for that, Irfan. Yeah, I had a question a few weeks ago from one of our buyers, is that you're speaking about this service that you provide. So Liberty, usually, when we do gifting, we sort of give vouchers. And we get our gift vouchers from shopping centers. And there was actually talk about doing away with supplying of gift vouchers now. And one of the questions that I asked is that I do know that a couple of years ago, the banks used to give you like a little debit card that you could use anywhere. So it didn't matter which store you went into, as long as you had that debit card, you could pay for it. So do you offer that type of service as well? Before I answer your next question.
Yes, we basically do. But before you answer that question, I think I should form that question in a better sense in terms of understanding what I'm trying, to offer here on our platform. You'll find that a company like, for example, EasyPay, they have a platform where you buy these vouchers and then you can redeem these vouchers against any payments that you need to make for your service provider or product provider. Now, like I said, Sanlam and African Bank are already using this method, and we would also like to look at corporates like the Discovery, Liberty, and saying, wouldn't you like to use the similar method? Being from the finance industry, I know sometimes when a debit order is not honored, it means a double debit, and it could lead to a cancellation. Where this platform could help the client, whether it is partial payments, at least make up for the missed debit orders, which is in the interest of the customer and the product provider as well.
So Irfan, I don't know to what extent the actual service would be needed within Liberty, but definitely happy to take it to the team. That is our CAE team, as well as so Liberty's got lots of business units. So we've got client advisory and experience. And then we've also got our client and service center, CASC team, and I mean the CASC team are the guys that predominantly would basically manage, the payments, the debit orders, things that go off for policyholders and that type of thing. And I think that would be the right department to send it to, or to have a meeting with and discuss it with. However, the buyer or the category manager, I think if you send your details through to us, what I can do is maybe alternatively set up a meeting with yourself, with the buyer, all under that category, and see how we can pursue that, if it is indeed something that Liberty would look at.
Shukran, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on, Fuyo, if you can just unmute and ask your questions.
Anissa, I want to find out if for solar energy, do you have a space? Because we have a partnership with a German company where we build solar plants. We can either build it at your premises or we build it at our premises and supply power through network. I want to find out if you have a space where we can build a plant in-house for solar to supply you with solar energy.
So hi, good morning. So the plan is actually to get so from what the process is going to be is that yes, it will definitely be built within property area, space, whatever it might be. So I know that the plan is right now is obviously to engage with engineers. Engineers would obviously come up with a design, and with that design is then we would then go to market again and say, okay, fine, this is the design, and invite suppliers to partake and offer bids in terms of this is the design, what is the best that you can provide us with or offer us. So my understanding is that it definitely, well, maybe it will be built at your site and transported to ours. I'm not sure how that logistics work, but there is a plan that everything should be at the property itself.
Oh, okay. So will we be invited to come and do that to check if it can be built at your premises? And
absolutely. If Nyasha shares your details, what you can do is as soon as you get my details, just forward me your information, then I can submit it through so that it can be included as part of the process that we are busy embarking on right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's move on to Angelo. Angelo, if you can just unmute.
Morning, Anissa. Thank you for this opportunity. Nyasha, my question is also just related to the solar side of things. More specifically also with regards to the first gentleman that asked about the supply. Because we are positioned predominantly coming from a manufacturing background as a business who is now focusing on supply to the businesses that are reselling, as well as installing sort of the smaller businesses. So the guys that would predominantly approach you to install or provide product to. Because often what we find in the market, specifically from a compliance perspective, we also offer a platform of training. From a training perspective, so would we be able to come on board in the sense of identifying some of the potential users, especially from an SMME space, that we can assist to supply a product into, because obviously we're looking at preferential pricing to companies that are supplying solar, like a lot of the smaller guys that cannot afford to buy the equipment upfront. We have facilities in place to sort of almost like a development plan that we have put in place to be able to support those kind of guys in that space. So would we be able to form part of your discussion and preparation process to identify those opportunities?
I think, thank you for that, Angelo. I don't know to what extent the actual conversations have gone to. I've just been holding to a meeting and I've been told that this is what is going on, this is what we need, and obviously this is the exercise or the project, and we want to commence it right now. So as far as all of that goes, no, I'm not aware if that is actually a requirement, but I think it is something that is so important because you're touching on around SMMEs, and obviously one of our main aims around the transformation agenda is that how do we create sustainable EMEs, QSEs that are Black owned, Black women owned businesses, and you're offering such a basic and yet it's such a much needed type of support system to these SMMEs, especially around this solar industry right now. And I think what for me, what is important is, if you send me your details, definitely can have that conversation. In actual fact, we are having a meeting later on this afternoon, and it's something that I can raise and see how you can be a part of it in terms of the support you can provide to the SMMEs. Definitely, yeah, I think I'm not going to promise you an answer back today, but if you do send your details through, after that meeting, we can definitely get in touch with you and let you know that this is what the business has decided on the way forward. Thank you for that.
I think there are synergy, because I'm also in discussions with one of the ministers who's heading up the social development from a government perspective, who's also having access to a network of smaller SMMEs, guys who's got startup businesses that they actually provide funding to and identifying opportunities. So I think that network to build sustainability around developing and also grooming these kind of markets is quite crucial. And some saying, I think there's some synergy that we can actually liaise on to try and assist where needed.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you, Angelo. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, when you think about what sort of opportunities are afforded to these guys that are starting up in this particular industry, you know, it's like you don't hear much of it. So it's quite sort of enlightening to hear that there is somebody out there that does this type of support. So, and it's what we need. Definitely, we'll get back to you by tomorrow with regards to what we have decided on the way forward.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Anissa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've got Ati. Ati, if you can just unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much, Nyasha. Good morning, Anissa. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So my company, a small IT company, we are in the digital space, and you did mention that ICT is one of your bigger items that you're looking for, and that's music to our ears. And I also happen to know that in terms of the recruitment that you would typically do as Liberty speaks to most of the skills that we have, things like SAP, certified consultants on the various SAP modules, even though on our side we specialize more on the business intelligence and data analytics, but we do have consultants within our space in the other SAP modules like SD and MM and things of that nature. From a cloud perspective, we are certified on the Microsoft Azure platforms. From a digitization point of view, things like Power Platform to create Power Apps to digitize business solutions within the organization, things like Power BI on the data analytics on the Microsoft side, and the Azure data warehousing, that entire landscape, we're quite experienced and certified to do that work. And I do know that those are some of the things that you guys are always looking out for. The only challenge is how then, as a small IT company, do we get to be considered for those roles? I think that is really my main question. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for that. So basically, what happens is we have a buyer that takes care of our consultants and contractors desk, and he is our liaison with business. So when business requires a resource for whichever platform that you've just mentioned now, what we have is we've got a preferred supplier list in place, and the preferred supplier list is all these companies that provide resources in terms of the requirements that we have at Liberty. But with that, he has a rate card. So for instance, if somebody in business comes and says, okay, we're looking for a resource to provide XYZ service, what the buyer then does is based on that PSL, and he has to rotate it because it's quite a big list. It's a long list. And obviously of the guys that are on the list, we identify in terms of the services that you provide, how many do we have? What he will then do is usually we will have a rate card that you will provide to us and say, okay, these are what my rates are. But what he does is every time he gets a request, he'll go to a supplier and he'll say, I am looking for somebody maybe under Azure. and you will then send your quote through, and you will assess it, and you will say, okay, fine, your quote has been successful, but by then you would have been on our PSL already, because the process would be that they would contact you, provide certain information to us, and obviously if you tick all the buttons, then you make it to that preferred supplier list. If there's anything that is short of what you have given us to be on that PSL, there will be communication with you in terms of what more is needed or required, and then take it from there. They put you on the PSL, and by being on that PSL means that you will be awarded work on a rotational basis. So my ask is that I think everybody that I've spoken to thus far, and I'm not sure if there are any others, but probably is listening, is that it doesn't matter what type of service or goods you provide. Send it through to us, and yes, myself and I do have an administrator. We sit with our buyers, we sit with the sourcing managers, we sit with the category managers, and then coming out of a session like this, we say, this is the pool of IT suppliers, and this is a pool of grace related supplies, and this is a pool of marketing supplies. We look at, what we do is the buyer actually keeps and retains your profile, because the minute business triggers a requirement, they go through that profile to see, of the services that we need, do any of you actually provide that service, and they then reach out to you to partake in that process. So I think, Nyasha, my ask is that if my details, if you provided with them, that they can then send me all their details, and we will definitely work on it. I think as Liberty, our biggest gap that we have is actually, we find that we deal with a lot of EMEs, but there is a gap in terms of QSEs. So it's looking at how we can take EMEs and sort of engage with them, give them business, and then see how we can help sustain their businesses that takes them to the next level of being a QSE. And I think the opportunities are endless now, especially with regards to the supply development opportunities that are offered within the bank itself. So yeah, please send through your details.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you so much.
Given that I know you spoke about the solar opportunity that might be coming up, Anissa, is it possible that we just share your details on this platform so that people can just agently?
Absolutely. I'll type it in now. I'll type it in quickly for everybody.
Okay.
And then one of the other things is that, and I know, look, it falls out of it, but you know, we do a lot of beverage and that type of consumables, sort of procuring of goods and services, and what we are trying to do of late is instead of going to market every time, is that we basically compiling catalogs. And the catalogs means that then you form a part of a preferred supplier. So if and when business requires a goods or service, it's that they actually go onto the catalog itself and procure the good or the service that they need, without having to let us go out on a process where, you know, the sort of this is what we want, procurement, and then procurement has to go and look for suppliers, and then we have to set up a cross-functional sourcing team, and then evaluations need to be done. Whereas if we have all this information up front, evaluations, due diligence, everything is done up front, you are placed onto this catalog. I mean, it makes it easier actually for business to be conducted, as opposed to us going to market every time.
Okay, makes sense. All right, thank you so much. Are there any more questions whilst Anissa is typing her email address into the chat? If there's any question, please just feel free to raise your virtual hand or just type in the chat. Anissa, maybe from your side, is there anything that you want to maybe ask the SMMEs? Are there any other services that you're looking for?
Well, at this point in time, Nyasha, I just want to say thank you to everybody for giving us the opportunity, us as Liberty, this opportunity just to actually be here today so that we could share some of our needs and wants as well. I think it's important, especially based on the fact that we are a company that does not do an open bid type of process. Everything is by invitation only. And, you know, I think for us is that we don't know what we don't know. So if there's suppliers out there and we don't know that. So you don't get to be a part of a process because we don't know you. And this is a perfect platform just to give us that opportunity, I think, just to let you know what it is that we do at Liberty as well. So there's nothing else that I would want to say. So maybe just one thing I can speak about around BEE is that when we deal with BEE suppliers, we need to be dealing with credible BEE suppliers. And we don't want to be dealing with suppliers that come in and say, and I understand in today's times it's very tough, but this 51% Black ownership and then an affidavit is produced, you know, it makes it so much more difficult for us to actually believe in the integrity that goes into that affidavit, because there is so much fronting that seems to be coming through with that. So for me, the want is that if we're dealing with guys, and I'm not saying I'm going to discount people that are 51% Black owned, but I would rather be dealing with a company that is 100% Black owned, knowing that this is happening, you know, in the true spirit of what it was meant to happen in. So that I think is just from my end, is that when I get a BE affidavit and it says 51%, I mean, we do actually give it a lot of work over just to ensure that it is a proper 51% Black shareholding, and it's not a school that is a beneficiary, and it makes it so much more difficult then for us to actually start awarding work on that.
So just to ask on that, so would you, this is related in that BE affidavit or BE certificate, what do you prefer? Do you prefer submission of a certificate?
Look, a certificate is good, but we do understand that as an exempt micro enterprise, some of these guys are startups, and it's understandably so. And I mean, to get a B certificate it's an expensive affair. I deal with people that cry just, I mean, you know, our tough economic times, for an EME to go and spend maybe 3,000 Rand on a B certificate. At the end of the day, you know, it's credible, but it's also money that he could have utilized on probably procuring a good that he needed to provide to a corporate. So an affidavit is acceptable. I think when it comes to certificate, it then just branches out in the different sectors that we're dealing with, where I think certificates are become sort of a requirement as opposed to a nice to have. And when I talk about certificates, I mean, especially in the real estate services, the construction industry, I think for me, certificates are then very relevant in that industry.
All right. Thank you so much for clarifying that. Anissa, thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy, but you spent considerable time with us, and we really appreciate that. I can promise you that your inbox is going to be full today with all the profiles that are being sent through.
Please.
But thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Oh, there was a question. I think it was Paul that asked. So we are actually having a session in Cape Town. It's a supplier matchup, but it's physical one. So they wanted to know, I think they really enjoyed the session. They wanted to know if you're coming to Cape Town.
I saw that come up on my email box, and I thought, okay, I need to go to Cape Town, but I can't go to Cape Town for a day. And I actually sent my manager the mail and I said, please, have you got money available? So he asked me, but you're not telling me how much it costs. And I think all it's going to cost is a flight. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's just the flight, and then everything else.
Everything else is free. So yes, I'm trying very hard to be there. I think it's later on this month. Am I right? At the end of the month?
So it's 24 July, which is next week, Monday. Is that too tight?
Yeah, so yeah, I needed to wing it, but yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna actually wing it that, and it's if I'd be there, I would love to be there. I actually, when I got it, I'm not lying, I sent it to my manager. I said, please, can I be here? Because I think Cape Town is also one of those markets that we haven't tapped into properly from a Liberty perspective.
Yeah, let's hope that you can come through. But if not, we still have Indaba. You've been to Indaba last year. Yes, so we will be happy for you to join.
We'll talk about the Indaba, but I think Sipati had a hand up.
Oh, is it? Sorry, I missed that. Sepati?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Anissa.
Hi.
Regarding the BEE, CIPC has their own BEE, besides the affidavit.
Yes,
So
it's acceptable.
is it acceptable? Okay.
It's acceptable. Yes. If it comes from
Okay.
CIPC, definitely it's acceptable. Yeah, sorry, I should have actually said that, CIPC does do certificates, especially for EMEs. So that is totally acceptable.
I'm happy. Thank you. I
And
was
know
worried.
Thank you so much. I see we've gone over our time, but there's a lot of hands being raised again.
I know they don't want you to leave. Maybe I can just take one more question. Mahlatse,
No.
if you can just unmute and ask your question.
Morning, yes, Nisha.
Morning.
It's Masatu from Lokolaba too. Anisha, I think we did meet on it was last year, September, or on the event that we had in Galaga. So just a follow-up question, because we did send, myself and others, we did send our profiles to Tabo. So we haven't really had anything ever since, which was last year. So I'm not sure, should we resend again to the email that you just sent now, or should we make a follow-up on the ones that we have already did?
No,
Thank
hi,
you.
Mahlati. Thank you so much for that. I'm so glad you raised that. So Tabo is no longer with the company, and he actually left just after the Indaba last year. So my suggestion to you would be to send it to that preferential procurement email address that I've shared with you. And then obviously we can handle it. So it's a central email box. So it's not just a person's box. So we'll get the emails there, and we can then sort of collate and do what we need to do on our side, and definitely let you be a part of our processes going forward. Yeah, sorry about that. I must apologize. I mean, I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, I was there last year, but I'm not sure as to the amount of emails that would have been received, maybe by the actual buyers themselves, and if you weren't invited or been able to partake in anything.
Thank you very much. We'll do so.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Anissa. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you in September.
Thank you so much, Nyasha. Thanks to everybody at Commerce Edge for giving us this opportunity, and to the suppliers for listening to me. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks. Okay. Bye-bye.
So this brings us to the end of our session. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep the session open in case there are SMMEs that want to engage between themselves. So if you want to share what you do in the chat with the others that are on the call, we will give you 5 minutes to do that. But we also request, please, we are sharing our feedback form. They're very important for us because they help us see where we need to improve, who do we need to bring next. So please, there is a link that has been shared about the submission of feedback forms. If you can just provide that, if you can just complete that for us, that would be great. And also in terms of the recording, please just bear with us. After the session, we edit the recording just to remove any funny things that might be on the recording. So just bear with us. Just give us a few days to send it through to you, but we will eventually send it. So thank you to everybody. We really enjoyed the session, and I hope you guys did too. Enjoy the rest of your day.